Admiral Hyun-ki stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Dominion as the final confirmation arrived. The last Void Wraith was dead. After 1,000,000 years of war, the galaxy's greatest threat had been eliminated. "Signal confirmed, Admiral," reported the communications officer. "All Wraith signatures have vanished from our sensors. The fleet commanders are requesting permission to celebrate." Hyun-ki nodded slowly. Around him, the bridge crew began to smile. Some even cheered quietly. The war that had defined Galactic civilization for countless generations was finally over. No more would entire star systems vanish into the dark void. No more would colonies wake up to find half their population simply gone, erased from reality itself. "Send word to all Imperial worlds," Hyun-ki ordered. "The Void Wraith threat is ended. Begin shutting down the emergency protocols." Deep in space, ancient machinery began powering down. Quantum barriers that had protected vulnerable worlds flickered and died. Defense grids that had operated for centuries went silent. The galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. On Earth, Dr. Sora Kim watched her monitors with growing amazement. The planetary defense grid was shutting down automatically, following protocols written by species that had died out long before humans discovered fire. Green lights turned red as system after system went offline. "It's really over," she whispered to her assistant. "The barriers are coming down." The quantum field generators hummed as they spun down to nothing. These massive machines had surrounded Earth and every other human world, creating an invisible shield that kept the Void Wraiths away. But they had done something else too, something the Empire's scientists had never fully understood. As the last generator powered down, Sora felt something change in her mind. It was subtle at first, like a fog lifting from her thoughts. Ideas that had seemed impossible yesterday suddenly made perfect sense. Mathematical problems she had struggled with for years resolved themselves in seconds. She was not alone in this change. Colonel Dongwoo Park was conducting training exercises with his Special Forces unit when it happened. His soldiers had always been good, among the best that humanity could produce. But as the quantum barriers faded, something awakened in them. "Form up for Assault Pattern Delta," Dongwoo ordered, testing a formation they had practiced hundreds of times. What happened next defied explanation. His soldiers moved with perfect coordination, anticipating each other's actions before they happened. They flowed through the exercise like water, finding weaknesses in the simulated enemy defenses that the computer had rated as impossible to exploit. "Sir," called Sergeant Taemin, his eyes bright with new understanding. "I can see 17 different ways to improve this exercise. The enemy positions are completely wrong. Any real opponent would have fallen back to secondary positions by now." Dongwoo studied the tactical display. His sergeant was right. More than right. The flaws in the simulation were so obvious now that he wondered how he had ever missed them. His mind raced through possibilities, strategies, and counter-strategies at a speed that should have been impossible. Similar changes were happening across human space. Captain Yu Jin, commanding the patrol vessel Morning Star, found her crew's performance improving dramatically. Her navigator plotted jump coordinates with inhuman precision. Her weapons officer scored perfect hits on targets that should have been impossible to track. Her engineer redesigned the ship's power systems during his lunch break, increasing efficiency by 30%. "Captain," her first officer reported, "our reaction times have improved by 400% since this morning. Our tactical computers can't keep up with our decision-making anymore." Yujin nodded. She had noticed it too. Every human under her command was thinking faster, seeing patterns more clearly, and working together with unprecedented coordination. It was as if they had all suddenly remembered something they had forgotten long ago. The Empire's xenobiologist, Dr. Jae Sung, was among the first to understand what was happening. As reports flooded in from human worlds, he began to piece together a horrifying puzzle. The Void Wraiths had not just been predators, they had been something else entirely. The quantum barriers weren't just keeping the Wraiths out, he told his research team. They were keeping something in human neural patterns. His computers worked frantically to analyze the data streaming in from across human space. Every human colony reported the same phenomenon: increased cognitive ability, enhanced tactical thinking, improved coordination and strategic planning. But most disturbing of all was what the medical scanners were showing. Human brains were physically changing. New neural pathways were forming at impossible speeds. Brain chemistry was shifting toward patterns associated with apex predators. The gentle defensive species that had joined the Empire centuries ago was becoming something entirely different. "Get me the historical archives," Jae-sung ordered. "I need everything we have on pre-contact human civilization." What he found in the ancient records made his blood run cold. Before joining the Galactic community, humans had been warriors. Not just soldiers, but creatures bred for conflict on a scale that dwarfed anything the modern galaxy had seen. They had conquered their entire planet through endless warfare, developed weapons capable of destroying all life on their world, and had been on the verge of spreading that destruction to the stars. Then the Void Wraiths had arrived, and something strange had happened. Human aggression had simply stopped. They became peaceful, defensive, content to hide behind barriers and let others fight the galaxy's battles. The Empire had assumed this was natural evolution, the result of a species maturing beyond the need for violence. They had been wrong. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Hyun-ki received the first reports from human space with growing unease. Increased military efficiency, technological breakthroughs, improved coordination between human forces. On the surface, these seemed like positive developments. Humanity was finally reaching its potential as a member of galactic civilization. But something in the reports troubled him. The language used by human commanders had changed. They spoke of eliminating threats rather than defending against attacks. They requested permission to conduct preemptive strikes against possible enemies. Most disturbing of all, they had begun asking about the locations of potential strategic resources in systems far from their own territory. "Sir?" His aide approached carefully. "We're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's Admiral Sung-ho of the Human Defense Forces. He says it's urgent." The face that appeared on the main screen was still recognizably human, but something had changed in the eyes. They held a cold intelligence that made Hyun-ki unconsciously step back. "Admiral Hyun-ki," Sung-ho said, his voice calm and measured. "I'm contacting you to inform you of certain changes in human space. We are grateful for the Empire's protection during the Void Wraith crisis. However, we will be taking responsibility for our own defense from now on." "That's acceptable," Hyun-ki replied carefully. "The Empire supports member species taking greater responsibility for their security." Sung-ho's smile was thin and sharp. "Good, because we've also identified several potential threats to human colonies. We'll be dealing with them shortly. I wanted to give you advance notice in case your sensors pick up our fleet movements." "What threats?" Hyun-ki asked. "Our intelligence shows no hostile activity in your sectors." "Not yet," Sung-ho replied, "but we prefer to eliminate problems before they become threats. It's more efficient that way." The transmission ended, leaving Hyun-ki staring at a blank screen. Around the bridge, his crew exchanged worried glances. Something fundamental had changed in humanity, and the Empire was only beginning to understand what they had unleashed in eliminating the galaxy's greatest threat. They had awakened something far more dangerous. The Boogeyman was dead, but the monster it had been guarding against was finally awake. 3 months had passed since the Void Wraiths died, and General Min-ho was beginning to understand that humanity had changed forever. He stood on the command deck of the battleship Iron Thunder, watching his fleet approach the colony world of New Seoul. This was supposed to be a routine aid mission to help struggling human settlers. What they found instead would shake the Empire to its core. "General," called Lieutenant Hae-jin from her station, "we're receiving multiple signals from the planet. They're not distress calls." "What kind of signals?" Min-ho asked, though he already suspected the answer would disturb him. "Weapons targeting locks, sir. They're scanning our ships with military sensors, very advanced ones." Min-ho frowned. New Seoul was a farming colony with maybe 50,000 settlers. They grew food crops and raised livestock. They had no military installations, no defense grid, and certainly no weapons capable of threatening. Imperial Navy vessels. Open a channel to the colony, he ordered. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Director Kyung-soo, the colony's civilian administrator. But something was different about his eyes. They held the same cold intelligence that Minho had been seeing in more and more humans lately. General Minho, Kyung-soo said calmly, welcome to New Seoul. I assume you're here to check on our progress. We came to offer assistance, Minho replied carefully. Your last reports indicated supply shortages and equipment failures. Kyung-soo smiled. That was 3 months ago. We've solved those problems. Would you like to see what we've accomplished? The colony's main settlement came into view as the fleet descended through the atmosphere. Minho stared in disbelief. Where there had once been simple farming communities, massive industrial complexes now sprawled across the landscape. Automated factories worked at impossible speeds, producing goods that looked suspiciously like military equipment. How did you build all this so quickly? Minho asked. We remembered how, Kyung-soo replied. Funny thing about barriers coming down. You realize you knew things you'd forgotten you knew. Minho's aide, Captain Jong-ho, pointed to his scanner readings. Sir, those factories are producing warships. I count at least 200 vessels under construction, and they're using technology I don't recognize. On the planet's surface, engineer Hai-wan supervised the completion of her latest project. She had once been a simple agricultural technician, maintaining irrigation systems and crop processors. Now she designed manufacturing systems that could build a destroyer in 6 hours. The knowledge had simply appeared in her mind as if it had always been there waiting. Production rate is up another 15%, her assistant Soo Bin reported. At this rate, we'll have a full battle fleet ready within the month. Good, Hai-wan replied, her fingers dancing over control panels that hadn't existed a week ago. The other colonies are counting on us. Humanity needs to be ready. Ready for what? Soo Bin asked. Hee-wan paused in her work. The question seemed obvious to her now, though she couldn't have answered it 3 months ago. For what's coming, she said simply. Something is always coming. It's better to eliminate threats before they become dangerous. Meanwhile, in the Empire's capital system, Dr. Kyung-ho was trying to understand what was happening to humanity's biology. His research facility held dozens of human volunteers who had agreed to neural scanning. What he found terrified him. The changes are accelerating, he told his research team. Human brain structure is evolving in real time. New neural pathways are forming overnight. Their cognitive processing speeds have increased by over 300%. His assistant, Dr. Vextar of the Zeridian species, studied the brain scans with growing alarm. These patterns, he said, they match the neural structure of apex predators, but more complex, much more complex. Look at this, Kyung-ho pointed to a particular brain scan. This subject was a teacher before the barriers came down. Now his brain shows tactical processing capabilities that exceed our best military strategists. And these neural pathways here, they're designed for coordinated group thinking. Coordinated how? Like a hive mind, but individual. They can think as one while remaining separate. It's the perfect military evolution. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just becoming smarter or more aggressive. They were evolving into the perfect military species, capable of unprecedented coordination while maintaining individual creativity and initiative. Back in human space, Captain Seung-min commanded the newly constructed vessel Iron Will. His ship had been built in one of New Seoul's factories, incorporating technology that shouldn't have been possible. As he led a patrol against pirates in the outer systems, he discovered just how much humanity had changed. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported his navigator Yunji. 12 pirate vessels, heavy cruiser class. Seung-min studied the tactical display. Before the change, this would have been a difficult fight. His single destroyer against 12 larger ships would have required careful strategy and probably retreat to get reinforcements. Now the solution was obvious. Target their power systems, he ordered. Disable, don't destroy, we want to question survivors. What happened next would have been impossible 3 months ago. His crew worked with machine-like precision, each member anticipating the other's needs. The weapons officer fired with inhuman accuracy. The navigator predicted enemy movements before they made them. The engineer maximized power output beyond theoretical limits. Within 10 minutes, all 12 pirate ships were disabled and drifting. Not one had managed to land a hit on the Iron Will. "Sir," called Communications Officer Tae Young, "we're receiving surrender requests from all enemy vessels." "Tell them to prepare for boarding," Shung Min replied. "We need information about their supply lines and base locations." The Imperial observer aboard the Iron Will, Commander Vextal, watched the interrogation. With growing horror, the humans didn't torture their prisoners. They didn't need to. Captain Xiang Min simply asked questions with such absolute certainty that resistance seemed pointless. Within an hour, they had the location of every pirate base in 3 sectors. "What are you planning to do with this information?" Vextal asked. "Eliminate the threat," Xiang Min replied matter-of-factly. "Pirates prey on shipping lanes. That affects human colonies, therefore pirates must be removed." "Removed?" "Completely. We'll hit every base simultaneously. No survivors, no escape, no possibility of regrouping. It's the only way to solve the problem permanently." News of humanity's transformation was reaching the Empire's highest levels. Emperor Valthak himself called an emergency session of the Imperial Council as reports flooded in from across human space. "They're not just changing," reported Intelligence Director Haxon. "They're preparing for war. Every human colony is building weapons. Every human ship is being upgraded with new technology. And their coordination is perfect. It's like they're all thinking with the same strategic mind." "War against whom?" demanded the Emperor. "Anyone they perceive as a threat, Your Majesty, which appears to be everyone who isn't human." Admiral Zekthar of the Imperial Navy stood to address the council. "Our xenobiologists believe the Void Wraiths weren't just predators. They were some kind of stabilizing force. They kept aggressive species dormant while they fed on civilizations." "And now they're gone," the Emperor said grimly. "Yes, Your Majesty. And humanity is waking up from a million-year sleep. Our analysis suggests they were never meant to be peaceful. The barriers didn't just protect them from the Wraiths. The barriers kept humanity contained." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They had eliminated the galaxy's greatest known threat, only to discover they had been unleashing an even greater one. On Earth, President Wu Jin received the daily reports from human colonies across the galaxy. Weapons production was ahead of schedule. Fleet construction was proceeding rapidly. Most importantly, every human world was thinking with the same strategic clarity. "Sir," his aide Minji approached carefully, "we're receiving requests for meetings from several Empire officials. They seem concerned about our military buildup." Wu Jin nodded slowly. The Empire's concern was understandable, but irrelevant. Humanity had slept for too long while others fought their battles. That time was ending. "Tell them we'll be happy to meet," he said. "But make it clear that we're no longer asking permission for anything we do. The age of human dependence is over." The beast was awakening, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity had been before the barriers made them forget. 6 months after the barriers fell, humanity announced its new military philosophy to the galaxy. Admiral Sung Ho stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Empire, his uniform crisp and his eyes holding the cold intelligence that marked the new human leadership. "The extinction protocol is simple," he explained to the shocked delegates. "Any threat to human survival must be completely eliminated. Not defeated, not contained, not negotiated with. Eliminated. This is not cruelty. This is efficiency." In her laboratory on New Sol, Dr. Yoon Young completed her latest breakthrough. The quantum disruptor cannon could bypass any known shield technology in the galaxy. More importantly, it didn't just destroy enemy ships. It erased them from existence, making recovery or study impossible. The field test was successful, she reported to Admiral Sung Ho via secure transmission. The target vessel simply ceased to exist. No debris, no energy signature, no trace that it was ever there. "How quickly can we mass-produce these weapons?" Sung Ho asked. "Every human world will have them within 3 weeks," Yun Young replied. We're sharing the technology freely among all human colonies. No point in keeping it secret when we're all working toward the same goal. This was another change that disturbed the Empire's observers. Human colonies that had barely communicated before were now sharing advanced military technology without hesitation. Patent rights, trade secrets, and competitive advantages meant nothing to them anymore. They functioned as a single organism spread across hundreds of worlds. The Empire's response came swiftly. General Thalion led a diplomatic mission to Earth, backed by a substantial fleet. He had orders to negotiate humanity's return to their previous defensive role. The meeting took place in Geneva, in the same building where humans had once signed their membership in the Galactic Empire. President Wu Jin greeted the Imperial delegation with polite courtesy. He offered them refreshments, comfortable seating, and a clear view of the city below. Everything seemed normal until General Thalion began making his demands. The Empire requires human military forces to stand down immediately, Thalion stated. Your recent actions violate several interstellar treaties regarding military buildup by member species. Wu Jin listened patiently, his hands folded calmly on the conference table. When Thalion finished, the human president spoke quietly. General Thalion, I want to make something clear. Humanity no longer recognizes imperial authority over human worlds. We appreciate your past protection, but we no longer require your services. That's not how membership in the Empire works, Thalion replied, his voice hardening. You cannot simply withdraw from treaties because you've developed new weapons. We're not withdrawing, Wu Jin said calmly. We're informing you of changed circumstances. If you attempt to enforce imperial law on human worlds, we will defend ourselves. Thalion's face flushed with anger. Are you threatening the Empire? Do you have any idea of the forces we can bring to bear against rebellious colonies? Wu Jin touched a control on the table. The conference room's windows darkened, then displayed a view of space above Earth. Thalion's Imperial fleet hung in orbit, 12 massive dreadnoughts that represented the Empire's military might. I can see your fleet, Wu Jin said. Impressive ships, very powerful. The view shifted slightly, revealing shapes that hadn't been there moments before. Sleek human vessels materialized around the Imperial fleet, appearing from nowhere with their cloaking fields deactivated. There were 50 of them, each one larger than the Imperial dreadnoughts. My ships have been shadowing yours since you entered the system, Wu Jin continued conversationally. They've been waiting for my orders. Would you like to test your weapons against ours? General Thalion stared at the display in shock. Imperial sensors were the best in the galaxy. How had 50 massive warships remained completely undetected? This is impossible, he whispered. 3 months ago, yes, Wu Jin agreed. Today, it's simply Tuesday. The battle that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Hour of Silence. Captain Ji-hoon commanded the human flagship Inevitable Victory, coordinating an attack that demonstrated humanity's complete tactical superiority. The Imperial fleet never had a chance. Human ships moved with impossible coordination, anticipating every Imperial maneuver before it began. Their weapons bypassed Imperial shields as if they didn't exist. Most terrifying of all, they didn't fight with rage or desperation. They fought with cold mechanical precision. Imperial vessel Thunder of Valthak, this is Captain Ji-hoon, came the transmission to General Thalion's flagship. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated well. Continue fighting and you will be erased. Thalion looked at his tactical display. In 30 minutes of battle, the humans had destroyed 8 Imperial dreadnoughts without taking a single hit in return. His remaining ships were completely outmatched. All vessels stand down, he ordered. Signal surrender to the human fleet. Wise choice, Ji-hoon's voice replied. You will be escorted to the edge of the system and released. Please inform your superiors that humanity is no longer available for conquest. News of the victory spread through the galaxy's underground communication networks within hours. Commander Hyojun, monitoring Imperial transmissions from his intelligence post on Titan, watched as the reports flooded in. Sir, his communications officer Sang-woo reported, we're intercepting messages from 12 different species. They're all asking the same question, which is, How do they surrender to humanity before we attack them? The psychological impact of the battle was exactly what human strategists had calculated. Species across the galaxy weren't asking if humanity would expand beyond their original territory. They were asking when and whether they could survive it. In the Empire's capital, emergency sessions of the Imperial Council ran day and night. Emperor Valthak paced his throne room as reports of human expansion reached him hourly. "They've taken the Kepler system," announced Minister Vaxel. "No battle. The local government surrendered as soon as human ships appeared." "And the Centauri colonies?" the Emperor asked. "Same story. The governors are requesting human protection from potential threats in their sectors." Intelligence Director Haxon approached with the latest analysis. "Your Majesty, our xenobiologists have completed their study of humanity's evolution. The results are concerning." "Show me." The holographic display showed human neural patterns compared to those of known apex predators throughout the galaxy's history. "Humanity has evolved beyond anything we've seen before," Haxon explained. "They don't just think tactically. They think strategically on a scale that encompasses entire galactic regions." "What does that mean?" "It means they're not just planning to defend their current territory, Your Majesty. They're planning to control this entire arm of the galaxy. Maybe more." Dr. Jun Seo, the Empire's leading expert on human psychology, had been studying intercepted human communications. What he found made him request an immediate audience with the Emperor. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "humanity has developed what they call predictive elimination doctrine. They're not waiting for threats to emerge. They're identifying potential future problems and removing them before they can develop. Give me an example." "The Rigel system has a species called the Vorthak. They're peaceful traders, no military to speak of. But human analysis suggests that in 50 years, their technology could pose a theoretical threat to human shipping lanes. So humanity has scheduled the Vorthak for elimination." "Scheduled?" "Next Tuesday, Your Majesty. They're going to wipe out an entire species because of something they might do half a century from now." Emperor Valthak sank into his throne. This was worse than rebellion or conquest. This was something entirely new in galactic history. A species that eliminated threats before they became threats, that planned military operations decades in advance, that shared technology freely because they no longer saw other humans as competition. On Earth, Admiral Sung Ho received the daily strategic reports from human colonies across the galaxy. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Human fleets were moving into position around key systems. Defensive installations were being constructed faster than Imperial forces could track them. Most importantly, other species were beginning to understand the new reality. "Sir," his aide commander Dayun reported, "we're receiving surrender offers from 17 different governments. They want to negotiate tributary status before we arrive in their systems." "Accept them all," Sung Ho replied, "but make it clear that tributary status requires complete military disarmament. We'll handle their defense needs." "And the species that refuse?" Sung Ho's expression didn't change. "The extinction protocol applies to anyone who threatens human security. It doesn't matter whether the threat is real or potential." The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. The species they had protected for centuries, the gentle farmers and researchers who had hidden behind barriers while others fought, had been something else entirely. Humanity wasn't becoming a military power. Humanity was remembering what it had always been. The Empire's million-year reign was ending not with a battle, but with a revelation. They had eliminated their greatest enemy only to discover they had been guarding their greatest threat. Humanity was no longer asking permission. They were giving orders. The Imperial Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Representatives from dozens of species shouted over each other as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Humanity had been expanding for only 8 months, but the effects were reshaping everything. "The Andorian Confederation has collapsed," announced Minister Vaxel, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Their government surrendered to human forces without a single shot being fired." Emperor Valthak raised his hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, but the fear in the air remained thick. How many systems have we lost this week? 47. Your Majesty, replied Intelligence Director Haxon. But they weren't taken by force. The local governments are requesting human protection voluntarily. Ambassador Yuri stood at the podium in the center of the chamber, representing humanity's new territorial claims. She had arrived that morning with a simple message, but its implications were staggering. The Human Defense Collective claims jurisdiction over all systems within 200 light-years of any human colony, she announced calmly. This includes mining rights, shipping lanes, and defensive installations. The chamber erupted again. 200 light-years from every human world would encompass nearly half the galaxy's inhabited systems. This is madness, shouted Senator Kexvar of the Zentauran Republic. You cannot claim entire sectors of space based on proximity to your colonies. Yuri's smile was cold and precise. We're not claiming them, Senator. We're protecting them. Recent analysis has shown that hostile forces could use any of these systems to threaten human colonies. We're simply removing that possibility. On the research station orbiting Proxima Centauri, Dr. Jun Seo was documenting the most terrifying discovery in galactic history. Human evolution was accelerating beyond all theoretical limits. The neural development rate has increased again, he told his research team. Human children born after the barriers fell are showing cognitive abilities that exceed adult geniuses of any known species. His assistant, Dr. Veltar, studied the brain scans with growing alarm. Look at these patterns in the infant subjects. They're processing tactical information at birth. It's as if they're born understanding warfare. Not just understanding it, Junseo corrected, excelling at it. These children are going to make current human military leaders look primitive. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just evolving as individuals, they were evolving as a species, with each generation becoming more formidable than the last. In 20 years, human children would reach adulthood with capabilities that no other species could match. Meanwhile, the Empire's military forces were discovering just how outmatched they had become. Marshal Karen commanded the largest Imperial fleet ever assembled, with orders to stop human expansion at any cost. Target the human colony at Wolf 359, he ordered from the bridge of his flagship Eternal Glory. If we can eliminate one of their industrial worlds, we might slow their production. Admiral Byung-ho of the Human Deep Strike Fleet had been expecting this move for weeks. His ships materialized simultaneously in 7 different Imperial systems, appearing without warning in the heart of enemy territory. Marshal Karen, came the transmission to the Imperial flagship. This is Admiral Byung-ho. While you're moving to attack one of our colonies, we've taken position around your 7 most important military installations. Karen stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Human fleets had appeared at the Empire's primary naval academies, weapons research stations, and fleet construction facilities. Each human force was smaller than his own fleet, but they were positioned to cripple the Empire's military infrastructure. How did you coordinate simultaneous attacks across such distances? Karen demanded. We think faster than you do, Byung-ho replied matter-of-factly. We also think further ahead. Your attack on Wolf 359 was predicted 6 weeks ago. We've been preparing this response since then. The message was clear. Humanity didn't just react to Imperial moves. They anticipated them, planned counter-moves in advance, and positioned forces accordingly. Fighting them wasn't like fighting an enemy. It was like fighting an enemy who could read your mind. What do you want? Karen asked, his voice heavy with defeat. Complete Imperial withdrawal from all systems within 300 light-years of human space, Byung-ho replied. You have 24 hours to begin the evacuation. And if we refuse, then we eliminate your infrastructure and move the boundary to 400 light-years. On the Imperial capital world of Xanturia, panic was spreading among the civilian population. News of humanity's expansion reached them through smuggler networks and black market communications. The official Imperial media tried to downplay the Yi-Bai threat, but people weren't fooled. They're coming for us next, whispered citizens in the markets. The humans are going to eliminate everyone who isn't useful to them. These fears weren't entirely unfounded. Commander Nam-He, operating from a hidden intelligence station in the Outer Rim, had been monitoring Imperial communications for months. Her reports to Human Command painted a clear picture. Imperial morale is collapsing, she transmitted to Admiral Sung-Ho. Military commanders are requesting transfers to sectors away from human space. Civilian populations are demanding peace, negotiations. Several Imperial governors have already begun secret discussions with our diplomatic corps. How long before total collapse? Sung-Ho asked. At the current rate, the Empire's military structure will be inoperable within 6 months. Their civilian government might last another year, but only if we allow it to. The speed of the Empire's disintegration surprised even human strategists. They had planned for a longer conflict, but the psychological impact of their tactics was devastating enemy morale faster than actual military defeats. Dr. Wan Shik, humanity's leading expert on galactic sociology, had been studying the broader effects of human expansion. His findings were remarkable. Crime rates have dropped to 0 in systems under human protection, he reported to the Collective Council. Piracy has been eliminated entirely. Interspecies conflicts have ceased. Trade routes are completely secure. How are we achieving these results? Asked President Wu Jin. Fear, Wan Shik replied simply. Every potential criminal, pirate, or aggressor knows that humanity responds to threats with complete elimination. It's more effective than any police force in galactic history. The human approach to law enforcement was indeed unique. Instead of arresting criminals, they eliminated crime by making the consequences so severe that no one dared break the law. Instead of patrolling shipping lanes, they had made it clear that any attack on commerce would result in the complete destruction of the attacking force and their home base. Captain Seok Jin commanded the newest class of human vessels, the Inevitables. These ships represented technology that made the Empire's fastest vessels look like antiques. His mission was to demonstrate human capabilities to the remaining Imperial holdouts. Entering the Vega system, reported his navigator He Young. Imperial forces are in position around the 4th planet. Time to destination at maximum Imperial velocity? Seok Jin asked. 14 hours, sir. And at our maximum velocity? 17 seconds, sir. Seok Jin nodded. The demonstration would be simple but effective. His ship would cross the system faster than Imperial sensors could track, disable their entire fleet, and be gone before they could react. The message would spread throughout the remaining Imperial forces within days. Execute jump, he ordered. The Inevitable vanished from one side of the system and reappeared next to the Imperial fleet 17 seconds later. Before the enemy could raise shields or charge weapons, Seok Jin's crew had disabled every ship in the formation. Imperial Commander Velkoth, came the transmission to the lead Imperial vessel. Your ships have been disabled but not destroyed. You will be towed to the edge of the system and released. Please inform your superiors that resistance is futile. Back on Earth, the Collective Council was making final preparations for humanity's ultimatum to the Empire. Everything was in place. Human fleets controlled all major shipping routes. Human agents had infiltrated every level of Imperial government. Human technology made Imperial defenses obsolete. The transition can be peaceful, Admiral Sung-Ho explained to the assembled human leaders. The Empire can surrender gracefully and maintain limited autonomy under human oversight, or we can eliminate their government and install our own administrators. How long do we give them to decide? Asked President Wu Jin. 72 hours, Sung-Ho replied. After that, the decision is made for them. Commander Da-Un had been monitoring Imperial communications during the final countdown. What she heard confirmed humanity's tactical assessments. Imperial fleet commanders are refusing orders, she reported. Several have already withdrawn to neutral space. The Emperor's own guard units are requesting reassignment. Their government is collapsing from within. The ripple effects of humanity's awakening had spread throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had predicted. Species that had never heard of humans were now learning about them as the Empire's replacement. Trade routes were being rerouted through human space because it was safer. Colonies were requesting human protection because it was more effective than Imperial defense. Most importantly, the galaxy was learning that humanity kept its promises. When they said a shipping lane would be safe, it stayed safe. When they said a species would be protected, that species remained secure. When they said a threat would be eliminated, it vanished completely. The Empire's million-year reign was ending not with a great battle, but with a whimper. They were being replaced by something more efficient, more reliable, and infinitely more dangerous. Emperor Valthak stood on his balcony overlooking the Imperial capital, watching ships depart the planet every hour. His own people were abandoning him, seeking safety in human space or neutral territory. "Your Majesty," his aide approached carefully. "The human ambassador is requesting a final audience." Valthak nodded slowly. The time for resistance was over. Humanity had proven their point without destroying a single world or massacring a single population. They were offering the Empire one last chance to surrender with dignity. "Send her up," he said quietly. "It's time to discuss terms." The age of the Empire was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin. The neutral world of Kithara had hosted peace negotiations for over 1,000 years. Its crystal spires and floating gardens had witnessed the end of countless conflicts across the galaxy. But never had they seen terms of surrender quite like the ones humanity was about to present. General Insung stood at the head of the human delegation, his uniform simple but immaculate. Across from him, Supreme Chancellor Vexus represented what remained of the imperial government. Between them lay documents that would reshape the galaxy forever. "The human collective's terms are non-negotiable," Insung stated calmly. "Complete Imperial withdrawal from all systems within 300 light-years of human space. Technology transfer to bring all member species up to human defensive standards. Recognition of humanity as the galaxy's primary peacekeeping force." Chancellor Vexus studied the documents with growing despair. These terms would effectively end the Empire as a governing body. "The Empire ended itself when it eliminated the Void Wraiths," Insung replied. "We're simply making the transition official." Director Nam He approached the negotiating table with a portable holographic display. Her presentation would explain humanity's reasoning in terms even the Empire's leaders could understand. "The galaxy faces threats you cannot imagine," she began, activating the display. The Void Wraiths were not the only danger. They were simply the most recent. Images flowed across the hologram. Ancient ruins of civilizations destroyed by forces beyond comprehension. Deep space sensors detecting movement in the void between galaxies. Mathematical projections showing invasion routes that could devastate entire star clusters. "Your million-year reign was built on managing crises after they occurred," Nam He continued. "Humanity is designed to eliminate threats before they can develop. This is not conquest. This is prevention." Chancellor Vexus stared at the projections. "How do you know about these things?" "Our best scientists have never detected anything like this." "Because you've been looking for enemies you understand," Insung replied. "You search for ships, armies, conventional threats. We look for patterns, possibilities, potential dangers decades or centuries in the future." Captain Seok Jin had arrived for the negotiations aboard humanity's newest flagship, the inevitable conclusion. The ship itself was a negotiating tool, demonstrating capabilities that made further Imperial resistance pointless. "Time from the outer rim to this system at maximum Imperial velocity?" he asked his navigator Ha Young. 6 weeks, sir," she replied. "And our travel time?" 12 minutes, sir." The speed differential was staggering. Human ships could now cross the galaxy in hours while Imperial vessels required months. More importantly, they could do it undetected until they chose to reveal themselves. "Imperial Command," Seok Jin transmitted to Chancellor Vexus. "My ship crossed 12,000 light-years to reach this system in under 13 minutes. We were completely invisible to your sensors during the entire journey. If you doubt humanity's capability to enforce these terms, please consider the implications." The demonstration was unnecessary but effective. Every being in the chamber understood that conventional military resistance was futile. Humanity could strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning, and no defense could stop them. Commander Da-Eun had been monitoring galactic communications throughout the negotiations. Her reports painted a clear picture of how other species viewed the changing situation. 17 different governments have already requested membership in the human collective, she reported to General In-sung. They're not waiting for the Empire's surrender. They want human protection now. What about the holdout species? In-sung asked. The Rigelian Combine is still refusing to acknowledge human authority, Da-Eun replied. Their government believes they can maintain independence through military buildup. In-sung's expression didn't change. Schedule them for elimination next week. Make it public. Others need to understand the consequences of non-compliance. The cold calculation behind humanity's decisions disturbed even seasoned imperial negotiators. They didn't make threats or issue ultimatums. They simply stated facts and allowed others to draw their own conclusions. Dr. Won-shik presented the final element of humanity's proposal. His analysis of galactic civilization showed why the Empire's approach had always been doomed to failure. Your government operates on a reactive basis, he explained to Chancellor Vexus. Threats emerge, you respond, conflicts end, and you wait for the next crisis. This creates an endless cycle of instability. And humanity's approach is different how? Vexus asked. We eliminate the cycle itself, Won-shik replied. Threats are identified before they become dangerous. Problems are solved before they become problems. The galaxy achieves permanent stability through permanent vigilance. The philosophy was elegant in its brutality. Humanity would create peace by making war impossible. They would ensure safety by eliminating anything that could pose a future threat. It was a solution the Empire had never considered because it required thinking on scales they couldn't comprehend. When Imperial delegates attempted to stall the negotiations, Commander Seung-ai revealed the extent of human preparation. Holographic displays showed human fleets positioned near every major Imperial world, human agents embedded in every level of Imperial society, and human technology monitoring every communication in Imperial space. We know about your emergency defense plans, she informed Chancellor Vexus. We know about your secret weapon research. We know about your attempts to form alliances with neutral species. All of these efforts are futile because we knew about them before you implemented them. The revelation was devastating. Humanity hadn't just outfought the Empire, they had outthought them at every level, anticipating Imperial moves weeks or months in advance. There was no strategy the Empire could devise that humanity hadn't already considered and countered. How is this possible? Vexus whispered. We think faster, Seung-ai replied simply. We think further ahead, and we share information instantly across all human space. Your government makes decisions in committee meetings. Ours makes decisions at the speed of thought. Captain Taeho commanded the human observation fleet stationed just outside the Kythera system. His orders were simple. If the negotiations failed, humanity would demonstrate the consequences of non-compliance. Sir, reported his tactical officer, Minjung, we're detecting Imperial fleet movements in 17 sectors. They appear to be massing for a final assault. Expected, Taeho replied calmly. Execute Protocol 7. Across the galaxy, human sleeper agents activated simultaneously. Imperial fleet commanders received new orders that countermanded their previous instructions. Imperial weapon systems mysteriously malfunctioned. Imperial communication networks went silent. Within an hour, the Empire's final military buildup had collapsed without a single shot being fired. Human infiltration of Imperial systems was so complete that they could cripple enemy forces from within. Imperial Command, Taeho transmitted to the negotiations on Kythera. Your military assets have been neutralized. This is not an attack. This is a demonstration. Your forces remain intact but inoperative. They will be restored to functionality once you sign the surrender documents. Chancellor Vexus stared at his communication device in shock. Reports flooded in from across Imperial space. Every fleet, every base, every weapon system was offline. Humanity had taken control of the Empire's entire military infrastructure without destroying anything. This is impossible, he repeated, his voice breaking. Difficult, corrected General In-sung. Not impossible, We've been planning this for months. The psychological impact was exactly what human strategists had calculated. The Empire's leaders finally understood that resistance wasn't just futile, it was meaningless. Humanity could control Imperial forces better than the Empire could. Dr. Yunji, humanity's leading expert on galactic politics, presented the final terms of surrender. Her analysis showed how the transition of power would benefit everyone involved. The Empire's member species will retain local autonomy, she explained. Human oversight will focus on security and defense. Existing governments can continue to operate as long as they don't threaten galactic stability. And if they do threaten stability? Vexus asked. Then the 5 years had passed since the Empire's surrender, and Admiral Subin stood on the command deck of humanity's greatest achievement. The eternal vigilance stretched for kilometers in every direction, a mobile fortress that could house entire fleets and project power across galactic distances. Status report, she requested from her bridge crew. All sectors report nominal conditions, replied her tactical officer Wanho. Trade routes are secure. Colonial development proceeds ahead of schedule. No hostile activity detected in any monitored system. The transformation had been remarkable. Under human administration, the galaxy had achieved unprecedented peace and prosperity. Piracy had been eliminated completely. Interspecies conflicts had ceased. Trade flowed freely along routes protected by human patrol fleets. But Subin knew this peace came at a price. Humanity had achieved stability by making resistance impossible and dissent unthinkable. Dr. Tejo worked in his laboratory aboard the Vigilance, completing the final analysis of humanity's transformation. His research had uncovered the truth about their species' origins, and the revelation was staggering. The evidence is conclusive, he reported to Admiral Subin via secure communication. Humanity was artificially evolved by an ancient civilization that called themselves the Architects. We were designed to serve as the galaxy's ultimate immune system. Immune system against what? Subin asked. Existential threats, Tejo replied. Species or entities capable of destroying entire galactic civilizations. We were meant to lie, dormant until such threats emerged, then activate to eliminate them completely. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't evolved naturally on Earth. They had been placed there by beings who understood that the galaxy would face periodic threats requiring absolute military response. The Void Wraiths had been the previous generation's solution to such threats. So we're not conquerors, Subin mused. We're antibodies. Exactly, Tejo confirmed. And our activation suggests that something is coming that requires our intervention. On Earth, the human collective's capital had been transformed into the administrative center for half the galaxy. President Hyrin managed the integration of dozens of species into humanity's expanding civilization. The process had been surprisingly smooth. The Andromedan refugees have been successfully resettled, reported her aide Kyung-min. Their technology has been integrated into our manufacturing systems. Their military personnel have completed retraining in human tactical doctrine. And their adaptation to human law? Hyrin asked. Complete compliance, Kyung-min replied. No violations reported in 6 months. This was typical of species under human protection. They followed human law not from fear, but from recognition that human systems worked better than anything they had previously experienced. Crime was non-existent. Conflicts were resolved instantly, and prosperity was guaranteed for those who contributed to collective goals. Children born in human space learned about the Great Awakening in their history classes. Teacher Yeun Seo explained to her students how humanity had discovered its true purpose after the barriers fell. Before the awakening, humans were peaceful. Farmers and researchers, she told the mixed species class. We hid behind barriers while others fought the galaxy's battles. But when the Void Wraiths died, we remembered what we really were. A young Centauri student raised her hand. Were humans always designed to be soldiers? Not soldiers, Yunseo corrected gently. Guardians. There's a difference. Soldiers fight wars. Guardians prevent them. The distinction was important. Humanity didn't seek conflict or conquest for its own sake. They eliminated threats before they could become dangerous, maintained peace, through overwhelming capability, and protected other species whether those species wanted protection or not. General Yunho commanded the military academy on Titan, training the next generation of human officers. His students would inherit a galaxy where humans were unquestioned rulers, but they would also face challenges their predecessors could never have imagined. Strategy is not about winning battles, he taught his advanced tactical class. Strategy is about making battles unnecessary. The perfect military campaign ends before the enemy realizes they're at war. His students included humans whose neural development exceeded even current military leaders. These children had been born after humanity's awakening, their minds shaped by evolutionary pressures that optimized for strategic thinking and tactical coordination. "Sir?" asked Cadet Dong-hyun. "What happens when we've eliminated all possible threats? What do Guardians do in a galaxy with no enemies?" "We wait," Yunho replied. "And we prepare, because threats always come from directions you don't expect." The truth of his words became apparent when Captain Hyarin detected the first signals from beyond the galactic rim. She commanded the Deep Space Monitoring Station, at the edge of human space, watching for signs of external threats. "Admiral Subin," she transmitted to the Eternal Vigilance, "we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies approaching from extragalactic space. Multiple objects, each larger than anything in our databases." Subin studied the sensor readings with growing concern. The objects were still years away from the galaxy's edge, but their size and trajectory suggested hostile intent. More importantly, their technology appeared to surpass even current human capabilities. "Scale and estimated time to contact?" she asked. "Objects range from moon-sized to planet-sized," Hyarin replied. "Arrival at galactic periphery in 18 years. First contact with outer rim colonies in 22 years. This was the threat that had triggered humanity's awakening. Something vast and hostile was approaching, and the galaxy's former rulers would have been helpless against it. Only humanity's absolute military superiority could mount an adequate defense. On the former imperial capital world of Zenturia, life continued under human administration with remarkable normalcy. Governor Chang Wu managed the transition with efficiency that impressed even former imperial officials. "Crime rates remain at zero," he reported to the Collective Council. "Economic productivity has increased by 300%. Citizen satisfaction surveys show 94% approval of human governance." The statistics were remarkable, but not surprising. Humanity governed through competence rather than oppression. They eliminated problems before they occurred, resolved disputes before they escalated, and provided security that made other concerns irrelevant. Former imperial citizens had initially feared human rule, expecting brutality and oppression. Instead, they found order, prosperity, and protection beyond anything their previous government had provided. Most had stopped thinking of themselves as imperial citizens. They were simply citizens now, part of humanity's growing galactic family. Dr. Minjun had been studying the psychological effects of human governance on other species. His findings showed how quickly non-human populations adapted to human systems. Resistance to human authority has dropped to statistically insignificant levels, he reported. Most species now prefer human governance to their previous systems. They've learned that cooperation with humanity produces better outcomes than independence. "What about species that still resist?" asked President Hyarin. "The Korthak Empire continues to refuse human oversight," Minjun replied. "They've withdrawn to their core systems and declared eternal independence." "Schedule them for elimination," Hyarin decided without hesitation. "We can't afford potential threats when the extragalactic invasion arrives." The decision was made, with the same calm calculation that characterized all human policy. The Korthak weren't eliminated for being evil or aggressive. They were eliminated for being unpredictable, and unpredictability was a luxury the galaxy could no longer afford. Admiral Jin Wu commanded the strike fleet that ended the Korthak Empire in less than 6 hours. His ships appeared simultaneously around every Korthak world, delivered ultimatums with 30-second deadlines, and eliminated all military resistance before local forces could react. "Korthak leadership," he transmitted to their homeworld, "your government has been dissolved. Your military assets have been neutralized. Your population will be relocated to suitable worlds under human protection. Compliance is not optional. The operation was surgical in its precision. No civilians were harmed, no infrastructure was damaged unnecessarily, and no cultural artifacts were destroyed. The Korthak simply ceased to exist as an independent political entity. News of the Korthak elimination spread throughout the galaxy within hours. Commander Inho, monitoring communications from his intelligence post, reported the typical reaction. Most species are expressing relief rather than concern, he informed Human Command. They see the elimination as proof of human commitment to galactic security. This response had become standard. Species under human protection no longer viewed elimination of potential threats as aggression. They saw it as necessary maintenance of the peace that allowed their own civilizations to flourish. As the years passed, the galaxy settled into its new routine. Humanity managed everything that mattered while other species focused on culture, art, and peaceful development. It was the most prosperous and stable period in galactic history. But Captain Hyrin's deep space monitors continued to track the approaching threat from beyond the rim. Analysis suggested an invasion force capable of devastating entire galactic arms, equipped with technology that could shatter planets and weapons that could destroy stars. Final analysis complete, she reported to Admiral Subin. The approaching entities show technological capabilities approximately 50 years ahead of current human standards. Their numbers suggest they've conquered multiple galaxies. Recommendations? Subin asked. Total mobilization of all galactic resources, Hierin replied. Complete integration of all remaining independent species, acceleration of military development programs, and preparation for warfare on a scale that exceeds anything in recorded history. Subin nodded grimly. This was why humanity had awakened. This was the threat that required absolute unity, perfect coordination, and overwhelming force. The galaxy's peaceful years were ending, but they had served their purpose. When the real enemy arrived, they would face not a collection of squabbling species, but a united civilization under human command. Send the alert to all human commands, she ordered. Operation Cosmic Shield is now active. Begin immediate preparations for total war. On Earth, children in schools learned about the approaching threat with the same calm acceptance they showed for all human decisions. Teacher Yunseo explained it simply. Something dangerous is coming from far away, she told her students. But humanity is ready. We've been preparing for this moment for millions of years. A young human student raised his hand. Will we win? Yunseo smiled with absolute confidence. We always win. That's what we were made for. The galaxy's former rulers cowered on their diminished worlds, but they slept peacefully knowing that humanity stood watch. The Boogeyman was dead, but something far more terrifying had taken its place, and this time it was on their side. The new galactic motto, inscribed on every human vessel and administrative building, read simply, "We are the storm that follows the silence." Humanity had awakened from its long sleep, and the galaxy would never be the same. But as the extragalactic threat approached, one thing was certain. When the darkness came, it would find not a collection of weak prey species, but a united civilization capable of fighting back. The real war was about to begin.